CentralNic is in the domain name business. We sell domain names, and they're the core infrastructure of the digital economy. The way the domain name industry has been around for about 20 years, and we have been able to double in size 5 out of the last 6 years, largely by acquiring businesses around the world to build out a stack of omni-platform businesses able to provide every customer in every market in the world with the domain name and the software stack they want. We have an underlying growth rate of approximately 6%, but a year-on-year growth rate of around 100% through these acquisitions around the world. The key underlying growth driver of the domain name industry is the growth of the internet itself. And so we have about 3.5 billion internet users around the world, which means that there's still a couple of billion people that don't use the internet, and there's a large group of interests, governments, telcos, tech giants, and so on, who are all working on bringing the rest of the world's population online. On top of that, especially in the growth markets, the emerging markets, there's still many businesses that don't operate online, or they operate online using free tools like social media, chat apps, and so on. But as those businesses grow from micro businesses to small businesses, they need a domain name as the foundation for their email, for their corporate websites, and so on. So those two factors, the move from offline to online and the growth of the internet itself, are the underlying factors that push our business forward. Domain names are subscription products, which means that you cannot buy a domain name outright. You have to pay a fee every year to retain the right to use that domain name. What that means is we have a recurring revenue business. That's the main factor, or that's one of the most attractive factors that really creates the quality of earnings around our industry. The second thing is that the renewal rates are highly predictable. Domain names have been around since certainly 20 years in volume, and all of the statistics are published, so it's entirely clear and predictable what the renewal rates are going to be. Third hugely attractive thing is the cash conversion. Our company has around 100% cash conversion rate, and the main reason for that is that we don't offer credit to our customers, so they actually pre-fund accounts, they pay at the very beginning of the 12-month cycle, and whilst our suppliers are typically paid later in the cycle. And so therefore the cash that we produce each year is equivalent to our EBITDA number. So probably the last thing, which is less of a financial thing, is that customers are hugely sticky in our industry. It's very unusual for customers to switch from one supplier to another, and that's typically for a very practical reason, that if you add up the amount of time and the amount of money required, the switching cost is often higher than the holding cost, and therefore everybody tends to stick with the supplier that they started up with. So CentralNic is a multi-platform business. So for every customer for domain names, we have a platform. But for each of those customers, the domain name is just the foundation, it's the infrastructure. And then on top of that, there are a number of other subscription-based software and other services that those customers are looking for. Team Internet, that we recently acquired, is focused on a particular customer group, namely domain name investors. Of the 350 million domain names in the world, 100 million roughly are in the hands of investors. And these investors buy domain names that typically were used for a website or business that went out of business. Then they bought the domain name, they hold it, hoping to flip it. But in the meantime, that domain name obtains traffic. And what Team Internet does is analyze that traffic, work out who's going to that domain name, why they're going there, and then finds appropriate advertisers that would love to get that traffic. So for instance, if you had a pet shop in a city, another pet shop went out of business, and you could put your ad on their old domain name, then that would be gold, because you know those people are in your city looking for exactly the products and services that you offer. So again, it's a recurring revenue business. It's a business that is working with 20 million domain names, and it's a business that delivered $10 million in EBITDA in the year to end of June 2019, and so therefore we couldn't be happier to be bringing that into our group. The domain name industry is about 20 years old, and yet there are many unicorns in our business. In Western Europe and in the United States, selling domain names together, particularly with hosting, have created many multi-billion-dollar businesses. Our approach has been somewhat different because we've come fairly late to the game. What we've realized is there are some very high-quality businesses with great tech, great people, and great customers all over the world in the markets where in the past 20 years there hasn't been sufficient growth for them to build, each one of them to build into a GoDaddy or a VeriSign or a United Internet. So what we're doing is we're rolling up those businesses, putting together the kind of the A-team of the smaller companies from all over the world, and then integrating all the platforms together to become the only omni-platform player destined to become the big player for the rest of the world. And what that means is whatever kind of customer you are, small business, large business, government, domain name investor, we have the right platform for you, we have the domain name for you, and as we continue to acquire and grow and launch new products, we will also have the entire stack of software that you need for your business purposes. We started off in domain name distribution, and back in 2012, 2013, there were a whole series of new domain names introduced into the market, and we were signed up as the distributor, biller, and cash collecting partner for a number of those, 60 in fact. So when we IPO'd, our plan was, our hope was to disrupt the .coms and the .co.uk's of the world with brand new, exciting, and lower cost domain names than ever been there before. We were very successful in that we became the largest distributor of these new domain names. We had the #1 domain name .xyz, as well as many of the others, and we maintain that today. We have 40% market share of those domain names, and about 10 out of the top 20. However, what happened very quickly was that market plateaued. It turned out we didn't disrupt .com or .co.uk. We found a new market in emerging markets and startups that were very keen to get these new domain names. But the .coms and the others just continued, they grew, they increased their prices and so on. And that told us some very important lessons, namely that this was a market that was hugely resilient, that continued to grow, and that no one was giving it up for apps, for Facebook, for new domain names. Everyone kept their domain names. And that led us to our new strategy. So we pivoted and we decided we wanted as much exposure as we could get to .com and the country codes. And so we started acquiring companies that were, say, 15, 20 years old with large embedded customer bases that fell into that. And so since then, we've made 8 acquisitions, which have built us to now having about 12% of all domain names in the world touch our platform. And these include many millions of .coms as well as most of the major country codes.